Hey guys, I'm coming to you from Global Fitness, which is LA's premier athletic training facility. Today, I want to talk about how do you know when you're ready to fight. Now, I'm not talking about like your first amateur fight. If you're an amateur and you're having your first fight, that is strictly your coach's job, and have a good coach. What I'm talking about are professional fighters, and you got a fight coming up and you have a fight camp. How do you know if you're ready to fight or not? I've worked with hundreds of fighters and they all say the same thing. Well, you know how I feel. I feel good. I feel good. That's it? That's your metric? That's okay, so yes, obviously how you feel. If you feel like shit, well, if you're a fighter and you feel like shit, you're going to fight through it anyway. What I'm talking about, I call them fight metrics. So metrics is just a word for units of measure or systems of measurement. So what are your fight metrics? What are the attributes that are relevant to fighting? Strength, speed, endurance, mental acuity. If we had a way of marking or measuring what your abilities are, then you'd be able to create a baseline and say, well, I'm this strong, and I have this much endurance, and I have this much mental acuity, I'm ready to go. So let's talk about that. Strength. There's different types of strength. There's absolute strength, which is how much strength you can muster, regardless of time or circumstance. It's just how much strength you can generate. That's called absolute strength. And the best indicators, or the best representation of that is powerlifting. And the traditional lifts for powerlifting are deadlift, squat, bench press. So if you have those in your arsenal, and honestly, I see no reason why you wouldn't, with the exception of the deadlift. Deadlift is the greatest of all exercises and the worst of all exercises. If you are built to deadlift, it's phenomenal. But if you are not built for deadlifting, lever lengths are incompatible, long legs, short torso, things like that. Or long legs, long torso, short arms. You're not going to be very good at deadlifting. But my personal favorite is the deadlift. It's pretty much a whole body exercise, and a 1 rep, 2 rep, at most 3 rep max gives you a good indication of what your maximum strength is. I personally would recommend using either the deadlift, bench press, or squat for one of them or all of them, that's your personal preference, for an indicator of your strength. And again, not more than three reps, pretty much a 1 or 2 on the high end, 3 rep max is going to give you an indicator of your max strength, or absolute strength. It doesn't have to be those 3 exercises. Those are just what I recommend because there's so much knowledge available that is not contaminated, is not screwy, or there's a lot of good references and resources, and it has a good history. So and I'm referring to powerlifting. So I can safely recommend that. But no reason you can't choose some random exercise that is specific to you, your favorite exercise, your favorite lift, whatever. The other reason that those are used is because they're multi-joint lifts. So your 1 rep max of a deadlift, or let's say a bench press, is going to have less risk than a 1 rep max of a bicep curl, because the force is spread out throughout your whole body rather than isolated at one joint. So anyway, that's your choice, but let's have an indicator for absolute strength. Strength endurance. Well, most of your hypertrophy training is actually strength endurance training. So that just, rather than having a test, just have an awareness of when you're doing your weightlifting, are you lifting relatively heavy for relatively high reps? That's going to give you an idea of strength endurance, and if you're doing any kind of weight training for your auxiliary strength training, then you'll have an indicator. Now, as I said, there's many different kinds of strength, and there's strength endurance, there's power endurance. What's the difference between strength and power? Well, power has the element of time, and power is the most important attribute as a fighter, and many people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. Let them fight my fighters and get knocked the fuck out. That's fine. I believe there's nothing more important than power and power endurance. So what is your best indicator of power? Now, traditionally, the power to weight ratio test is vertical jump, and that's a full body movement. You're not just jumping with your legs; you're using your whole body, and it's a pretty straightforward, simple test. And the higher you jump, the better your power to weight ratio. So I would recommend that. Also, if you're doing plyometrics, and I can pretty much bet if you're doing plyometrics, y'all are doing them wrong. Y'all are on steroids. Hashtag free Nick Diaz. Sorry. No, plyometrics, few people do them. Most people that do them wrong. That's going to be a whole other video, how to do it right. But let's give you the benefit of the doubt. And let's say that you are doing your plyometrics right. Your plyometrics are power to weight ratio. So the higher you get in your rebound push-ups, the higher you get in your bounding, the more powerful you're going to be. So that's another indicator. And even if you don't have a comprehensive schedule or a comprehensive auxiliary strength training program, with a strength coach who knows fighting and knows how to tailor it for you specifically, if you're kind of making it up on your own or working with a strength coach from another sport, at least hopefully this information will be useful, and you can start putting together just a baseline test of, okay, well, when I'm at my peak, this is my absolute strength or my max strength, and my power to weight is high because my vertical jump is at 45 inches or 50 inches. Again, arbitrary numbers. And remember, you are only comparing you to you, right? You're not comparing your bench press to the world record bench press holder. You don't need to bench 850 pounds to be ready to fight. You just need to be able to bench what you bench at your high end to know, okay, well, these are some quantifiable metrics that tell me I'm ready to go. I set off some alarm. Sorry, it happens. Absolute strength is one metric that you can use, and power to weight, extremely important. Now, cardiovascular endurance or cardiovascular fitness, maybe, gets way too much fucking attention, gets way too much focus. People think that fighting is an aerobic sport. No, losing is an aerobic sport, or bitching out and taking it to the judges is an aerobic sport. But fighting is anaerobic. And it's me taking my max and making sure it's more than what you got, and beating the fuck out of you as soon as fucking possible. Now, if you prescribe to a different style, if you think going bell to bell and setting a number, most rounds won and most judges filleted, great, wonderful. Probably just stop fucking watching my channel. If you want to learn how to get bigger, stronger, better, faster, hit harder, and destroy people, stay here. Sorry, forgive me my little rant about cardiovascular training. Cardiovascular is important, but it's only important to support the recovery of your anaerobic systems. If your fight lasts for 20 minutes, you fucking suck. I don't care who you are. Fuck you. Knock people out. Finish people. Get the job done. One bell. Okay? So the only way to fight that way is anaerobically, and to push your opponent past his anaerobic threshold, and to have your anaerobic system recover faster than his, assuming you go to a second round, which, why are you doing that? Again, let's give the aerobic system its importance, but the easiest indicator for your aerobic health, your aerobic fitness, is your resting heart rate. Keep track of it. Once a week, twice a week, first thing when you wake up, take your resting heart rate. You take your pulse for a minute. You count it, okay? Now, you need to be, for any fight, you need to be below 70, mid-60s, acceptable. You really want to be somewhere between 55 and 65. Going less than 55, there are guys that, oh yeah, you're getting into bell-to-bell fighting. You're getting into putting your aerobic capacity against my anaerobic capacity. That's a dangerous gamble. But these are the numbers that I'm giving you for a reason. If you are doing too much aerobic training, too much long, steady distance training, your heart rate, your resting heart rate is going to go lower and lower. And if it gets much lower than mid-50s, I guarantee you are damaging your explosivity, you are losing strength, you're losing speed, you're losing power. So, if you're going to be a destroyer, an explosive killer, a Mars fighter, your aerobic capacity is not going to be that of a grinder, and especially not that of a bell-to-bell fighter. Fuck them. They're our fodder. We destroy them. We break shit. That's what we do. So, you need enough aerobic capacity to fuel your anaerobic systems. So far we have absolute strength or maximum strength, we have power to weight, and we have cardiovascular. Simple tests that I gave you, multi-joint lift, deadlift, bench press, or squat, or some other maximal lift that we will hope you're well educated enough to pick. Power to weight, some ballistic type movement, whether it's a rebound push-up, a backflip, or vertical jump. Again, hopefully you can figure it out. I'd recommend the vertical jump. It's the simplest, easiest, and it's consistent, again, across all platforms of athletics. And then resting heart rate. But resting heart rate cannot just be taken once. It fluctuates, and you can also use it to tell if you're overtraining. If you're at 60 BPM consistently for 3 weeks in a row, and then the next week all of a sudden your heart rate shoots, your resting heart rate is in the high 70s, something's wrong. So it's a useful metric. Now we've got speed, incredibly important, and speed is actually part of power, but it can also be tested separate from power. The reality is the metrics that I've given you so far are objective. They are quantifiable. They are or they are not. There's no room for personal opinion. So there's objective metrics and there's subjective metrics. How do you feel? I feel good. That's subjective. Okay? Now, subjective metrics have their place. Most people rely on them too heavily though, because they're way too, there's too great a variance, and they're way too easily manipulated with your own mental bullshit. And your yes men, and your manager, and your pressure from your family to make the fucking mortgage pay. Shit is too easy, subjective shit is too easily manipulated by the rest of life. So we want objective, quantifiable metrics. So far I've given you three: maximal strength, power to weight ratio, and resting heart rate. Now, a subjective measure would be endurance, speed and endurance. This you need a good pad holder and or a great coach who can be honest with you, right? And what happens a lot is your coach is relying on your fucking paycheck as much as you are, and that's a bad situation, right? So they might, I don't want to say, with ill intent, but they might be invested in the fight the same way you are, so that they might be influenced with their subjective metrics to, oh yeah, you're ready to fight. Like, yeah, well, you're not really ready to fight. So take that for what it's worth as a grain of salt. Subjective metrics. Speed, endurance. Well, that's pad work. You got a good coach doing mid work with you, pad work. Your coach will be able to tell within the time limit allotted, whether it's 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever specific to your sport, if you're hitting as hard, fast, fluently, right, at the beginning of the round as the end of the round. So that is important communication between you and your coach, and why coaches are really fucking important. Now, another quick test for kickboxing and MMA that I like to use is round kicks per minute. So I'm going to hold the pads for my fighter, and they're going to throw as many round kicks as they can in a minute. Now, depending on individual choice, coach's choice, fighter's choice, I usually leave it up to the fighter. Are we just doing the power leg? Are we doing the rear leg round kick? 60 seconds. Are we going left kick, right kick, or right kick, left kick, or left leg only? Whatever it is, decide what it is and use it as a test, and that's going to be a test of speed, endurance, right? The more kicks you do, the better your endurance is, the better your speed is. However, what qualifies as a kick? And that's the subjective part that you need a coach or a pad holder that can be honest with you. That last kick was bullshit, it doesn't count, right? And for me, if it doesn't break something, it doesn't count, right? So if it's not carrying enough heat on it, if it's not carrying enough force, if it's not 700, 800, 900 pounds of force, boom, then it's not a kick. Then you're just slapping your foot, and you should never do that. And train it out. So how many real full blast, full speed ground kicks can you do in 1 minute? And then another important distinction, if you're using the rear leg, when you throw the ground kick, does it come back to the original point of origin, or do you go here and then bounce it early? Either way is perfectly acceptable, and the better you are at kickboxing, better you are at Thai boxing, you're going to know what you do, when to do it. They're both two valid options. Just make sure you do it consistently, whatever test you're doing. So if it's a full round kick, boom, boom, then do that. If it's a partial round kick, bouncing off the floor, do that. Whichever it is, just be consistent. Round kicks per minute is a good subjective test for endurance. It's skill specific. It's going to tell you speed, endurance, and it's a good metric to say, okay, yeah, you're performing well. The last one is mental acuity. Now, this is completely subjective. And there are some tests that are available. In Southern California, Dr. Gluckman is pretty much the neurologist that the State Athletic Commission sends everybody to for their testing. But when you have a concussion, he has these tests that you go on a computer, and they're different each time. And they rate your mental acuity. That would be awesome. However, it's not realistic for most fighters to utilize that metric every fight camp, or really any fight camp, especially MMA. I'm kind of miffed. I'm a little pissed off that MMA fighters aren't making more money yet. It's ridiculous. It's unacceptable, and I really hope that we get a fighters union soon and start taking care of our fighters, because same thing with kickboxing. Does anyone take more damage than a Thai fighter or a kickboxer, and they're making the least amount? It's fucking ridiculous. Sorry, got off topic. So the likelihood of being able to use a mental acuity test designed for concussion detection, the financial likelihood of the financial feasibility is not high. So again, that means your coach or your pad holder or your sparring partners or your people around you need to know that it's important and not just talk through it. And so, are you missing words? Are you misplacing your car keys more than usual? So these are warning signs, these are red flags. But then mental acuity, how sharp are you? And you got to police yourself, and you got to have a circle around you. So your focus mitts, your pad work, your sparring, the people who you work with should be aware enough and honest enough to say, yo bro, or sis or gal, or you're not on point. And I know a handful of coaches that they'll fucking tell you, listen, I don't care how much money you got coming in, you're not on point. So we got to change something. So mental acuity, I wish we all had access. And hey, shop around, look around on Google. Maybe there's something there that I haven't seen. But it would be great if we had tests that just told you, yeah, you're sharp, you're mentally sharp, or you're a fucking idiot. Anyway, so take that and compile your own set of baseline tests or baseline metrics that you know, I'm strong enough, I'm sharp enough, I have the endurance, and I'm ready to fight. All right. Hey, guys, listen. We are making the world a better place. We're saving lives. Subscribe to my YouTube page. And if you're not on YouTube, if you're coming across this through another venue, Facebook, whatever, log in to YouTube and subscribe. Thank you.